Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you all are doing absolutely well. Guys, in this video we are going to prepare for top 10 most asked React interview questions. So if you are also preparing for your upcoming React interviews, this video is going to be super helpful for you, as in this video we are going to see the top 10 most asked React interview questions. So in this video I will not be just telling you questions, but I will also be telling you the answers and example codes that you can also answer in your interviews. Make sure to watch the video till complete end, as I have a lot of tips and tricks that you can use in your interviews and you can crack any company's interview by preparing from this video. So before we start the video, if you're new to my channel, make sure to subscribe to the channel, as I regularly post these kinds of helpful videos, and make sure to check all the React playlists that I have on my channel. I will post the links of those playlists in the description box. So let's get started with today's video. Let's look at this question. What is JSX and why do we use it in React? So see guys, the answer for this question is going to be JSX, which stands for JavaScript XML, is a syntax extension for JavaScript that allows us to write HTML inside JavaScript. Now you should not say HTML, you should say HTML like syntax. Okay, why so? Because it is not the exact HTML, because interviewer might cross question you that you write exact HTML or what. So you should say it JSX lets us to write HTML like syntax inside our JavaScript. It makes UI code more readable and expressive. JSX is not required. Now another question that can come on this JSX is that, is JSX mandatory? Without JSX can you not write React code? So no, it is not so. JSX is not required in React, but it simplifies component creation. There are other ways also to create component and write the React code, but JSX simplifies our process. So that is why we use JSX. Now I have taken one example to understand what is JSX. So basically you see what we have done. We have created a component, okay, element, and then here inside the h1 tag we are just writing a text hello world. Okay, so this is just like how we write the like a heading in HTML, right? So that is how we write in JSX also. When we write this gets compiled to this statement, okay, that is const element react.create element, and then this is our tag, and this is like any attribute if we have passed, but in our case we have not passed any attribute value, and this is our text. Okay, so they can ask you how JSX get transpiled or interpreted behind the scenes. So you can say that it like React uses react.create element, okay, to understand JSX code. So in this way you can explain. I hope you have understood it. Let's now move on to the next question. The next question is, how do props work in React? Okay, let's see the answer for this question. Props, for basically what does props means? Props is the shorthand or short form of properties. Okay, props basically allows data to be transferred or passed from parent component to a child components. Props are read only, meaning they cannot be modified inside the child component. So you have to understand that props are always passed from parent element to parent component to child component, and they are read only, which means its value can't be changed from the child component. Obviously you can change its value in the parent component from where you are passing, but in your child component you cannot change it. Okay, let's see one example of props. So see, we have the this is our parent component. Okay, I'll write it here. This is our parent component, and this is our child component. So before looking at the child component, let's look at the parent component. So in parent component, what we are doing, we are calling user profile. Okay, and then we are passing the props values like name as Rahul and image as profile.jpg. Now in our child component, what we are doing is we are taking these values that were passed from the parent component, that is name and image, and I am just displaying those values in my component. Like name will be displayed as h2 and image will be displayed using the source. Okay, so in this way, like the data will be passed, or props will be passed from parent component and will be used inside child component. Now moving on to the next question. Next question is, what is state? Okay, state in React and how it is different from props. Now state and props is again a very important concept, and it is the most asked question. Okay, I would say. So what is state and how it is different from props? Let's see the answer for this question. See, state is used to manage component specific data that changes over time. Unlike props, state can be modified using state hook or this.set state in class components. Okay, so see, we have seen that props cannot be modified. Okay, cannot be modified, but states, whereas states can be modified. Okay, this is the major difference that you have to remember whenever there is a difference that is asked between states and props. Okay, that is, states can be modified, props cannot be modified. Let's understand the example. See, we have a counter component here. In this we are creating a state. This is what, this is a state. Okay, using use state hook we are creating in functional component, and if you have class based component you can create it using this dot set state also, but mostly these days functional component only we use. That is why I have taken the example of functional component over here. So here what we have done is we have created a count state and initialized its value as 0. Okay, this is how we initialize the value. Now in our while returning or showcasing on the DOM, the value on the DOM, what we are doing is we are showing the count value, and then we are showing a button. Whenever there is a click on this button, what we are doing is we are incrementing the count value by 1. So for example, if this is our screen, how it will look like, we will have the word count here, and then initially our value will be 0, and then there will be a button which will say increment. Okay, which will say increment. Whenever I click on this button, what will happen, this value will change to 1, then this value will change to 2. Okay, so in this way this value will change whenever I click on this button. So this is how this is the basic example to understand how state works basically. Okay, now I have this comparison table to understand state, the difference between states and props in a better detail. So see, first thing is states are modifiable, which means it can be changed, but props are not modifiable. Okay, this is the major difference that we have already seen. Now second difference is passed from parent. So props are passed from parent to child, but state are not passed from parent to child or something. States are created within a component itself to manage the component data. Okay, triggers re-render. Now whenever there is a change in a state, okay, it triggers a re-render in that component, and the same goes with props also. Whenever there is a change in prop, it also triggers a re-render of the component. Okay, so I hope now you have understood what is state, what is props, and what is the major differences between those. Okay, so basically this table is the quick and easy way to understand all the differences between states and props. Okay, so the difference lies in three things: modifiability and passing from parent, and then triggering re-render. Let's now move on to the next question. Let's see this question. What is conditional rendering in React? Okay, so conditional rendering is one of the most asked question, okay, in React interviews. Let's see the answer for this question. Conditional rendering allows components to render different UI elements based on certain conditions. This is often used for authentication or feature toggles. Okay, authentication or feature toggles. Let's see one example. Basically, conditional rendering is nothing. Basically, if you want to show something based on any particular condition, then you will use conditional rendering. That if this condition gets true, I want to show particular thing, and else I want to show the other case. Okay, that is only this. If you have such case, then you have to use conditional rendering. Let's see. See, here we are taking our example for authentication. So what we have done is we have created auth button. Okay, const auth button, and we are checking if is logged in value. Okay, so if our is logged in value, basically we are taking this as an prop. Okay, its value will be either true or false. So if the is logged in value is true, then we will show logout button, and if it is false, then we will show login button. Okay, basically if you are logged in, right, if you are logged into your app, then which button you should show? You should show logout button, right? Why so? Because you are already logged in. Now you want to log out by clicking on that button, and if you are logged out, you have to show login button. So this is how our logic is implemented. So basically the main aim is to make you understand conditional rendering, which is happening using these signs. Basically you write your condition and then this question mark, and then this means this condition will implement whenever your condition is true, and then you will have a colon, and then this one, which means if your condition is false, then this condition should execute. Okay, I hope it is understandable. And then usage is simply from the parent component. We are just passing the value of is logged in as true. So when we will pass the value of is logged in as true, this condition will hold true, and then the button that will show on the screen will be logout button. Okay, I hope you have understood it. Let's now move on to the next question. Okay, the next question is, how do you render a list in React? Okay, so in React we have list. Right now, what is a list? List is basically an array. Okay, array of items. So let's see the answer for this question. In React we use map function to dynamically render a list of items. Each item must have a unique key prop to optimize re-renders. Okay, now let's see the example here. We have taken a list of items. Okay, this is basically a list of fruits. Here in this list we have apple, banana and cherry as our fruits mentioned. Now what we are doing is we have created a component fruit list, And here what we are doing is we are taking this fruits array and then we are running a map function over it, that is fruits.map, and then we are having two things over here. One is fruit and one is index. Fruit is what basically? Fruit is basically one individual entry. It is referring to one individual entry, that is first time when the loop will execute or the map function will execute, fruit will hold this value. Okay, so what you will do, you will just show this value, okay, as the fruit value. So for example, if your like list is getting rendered, first value that will show is apple, okay, that is using this fruit value. Then again the list will render, second value will be banana, okay, in this way, and then the third value will be cherry. So in this way your list will render. Now one important thing is we always use keys when you render a list, because key, like every item in a list should be having a unique key prop to optimize the re-render, just in case if at a later point of time if your this list get restructured. So React does not have to do a lot of work. It can easily understand the only new changes that has happened in the list. Okay, so for that purpose keys are very important. And just in case if you don't add a key, you will also see an error message or a warning message in your console also, that please use unique keys. Okay, let's now move on to the next question that we have. How do you handle events in React? Okay, events in React. So let's see the answer for this question. React uses camel case for event handlers. Example, on click instead of on click. Okay, so for this for example, this is the way how we write events handler in React using camel casing convention. And in HTML and different languages we use the normal casing, which is all lowercase, but in React we use camel case. So instead of inline event listeners, we pass function reference. Let's see one example over here. See, here we have a state, basically dark mode, set dark mode, initialized, we have initialized its value as false. Then what we are doing is we have created a button. Okay, then here you see whenever we click on that button, basically what should happen is mentioned inside this on click event handler. Here basically we are setting the dark mode value to whatever its previous value was. If the previous value was false, then we will turn it to true, and if it is true, then we will turn it to false. And then here what we are doing is we are just simply doing conditional rendering to show what is our current mode. If dark mode value is true, which means we have to show light mode. If dark mode value is false, which means we have to show dark mode. Okay, so in this way, like conditional rendering works, and this is your event handler, which is on click, and this is how you use it. Okay, basically if you want to pass any functionality to a button, whenever it is clicked on, something should happen. So in this way you will add a event handler on click to your button. Moving on to the next question. How would you build a simple to do app in React? Okay, so guys, for just for answer sake, I have taken a very simple and basic answer, but this is one of the most asked interview question in itself, that please create a to do app in React. Now in to do app also you can be asked to create, like or implement multiple functionalities, like, and what are those multiple functionalities? Like adding an item, removing an item, okay, and then editing an item, and then checkbox functionality. Checkbox means whenever you click on the checkbox, that item should be striked out. Okay, for example, if this is my like item in my to-do list, so there should be a checkbox. When I click on this checkbox, this item should be striked out. Other one is for example, this is my like item, then I should have a button for done. Okay, done means removal. When I click on this button, this item should be removed from my to-do list. Okay, so in this way you can be asked to implement different functionalities. So if you want to see all these functionalities implemented, you will find the video already on my channel in the ReactJS playlist. If you will go and check, you will find it. But here for basic answer, I have taken the answer. Let's see that. A basic to-do app involves managing a list of tasks using use state, adding new tasks, and removing completed tasks. This is the most easiest functionality. Okay, let's see how we will implement this. So here what I am doing is I have taken two states basically. One is task, and this is an array. Okay, it will store multiple tasks of our list. Okay, for example, if you have multiple tasks as shopping, reading, playing. Okay, so all this will come under tasks. Okay, playing. Okay, so these are all what? TASKS, tasks. And this task is for what? This is just for handling the input of one task. Okay, so I'll show you what it means. See here what we are doing is first of all, this is our output, or like what we will show on screen. So initially we will have an input, okay, input box like this, something like this. Okay, here the value is task, and on change, basically this is how we accept an input in React.js. Okay, and for this we are using this use state, okay, task state. Then we will have a button side by side to it which will say add task. Okay, add task. So for example, if I have written my task as coding, and then when I click on this add task, what should happen? For that we have like on click event handler, we have passed the function as add task. When I click on this button, this add task function will be called, and it will check if our task value is present. Then what you have to do is you have to add that task value into your tasks array. Okay, basically, so this means what? Whatever values are previously there in your task arrays, keep them as it is and add one more entry, which is your new entry which you have entered in your input. Okay, so for example, if this was our tasks list previously, then one more entry will come here whenever I click on the add button. So coding will come here, and then we are setting the task as empty array, because what I want is whenever I click on this button, the task should be added in my task list, and then the input should get cleared up. So then the input will be cleared up, and then it will be like this. Okay, there will be nothing in the input, because that is a good user experience, right? And then finally what we are doing is we are mapping over all the entries that we have in our task list. Okay, so then on the screen all these tasks will show up. So this is the simple implementation. What we are doing is we are just adding our task that we have in our input box to our task list. Okay, I hope you have understood. As I told already in the starting of the question, there are multiple like functionalities that can be implemented in a task list. We have seen adding. There can also be a removing functionality, editing functionality, checkbox functionality. If you want to see all those functionalities, make sure to check the complete to do app project video on my channel. Okay, let's now move on to the next question. What is use state hook and how do you use it? Okay, the answer for this question is use state is a React hook that allows functional components to manage the state inside them. It returns an array with two elements. What are those two elements? First one is the current state value, and second is a setter function to update the state. And let's see the example how we use state in React. So see, in this way, like for example, if you want to create a state for storing the count value, the state name is count, and this is the setter function which will be used to update the state value. And how we initialize the value is using this way, use state, and in the bracket we have set the initial value as 0. And then how, if I want to change its value to 1, or if I want to increment its value, what I will do is I will use the setter function, that is set count, and I will update the value as count plus 1, which means previous count value, add 1 to it. So in this way the new value will be 1. Okay, I hope you have understood what is use state and what are the different elements that are there in that, and how we update the value of a use state or a state in general. Moving on to the next question, what is use effect hook? Okay, use effect hook and when you use it. Okay, let's see the answer for this one. Use effect is a React hook used to perform side effects like fetching data, subscriptions, or manually changing the DOM. Okay, so there are different purposes whenever when we use our use effect, like fetching data, subscription, or manually changing the DOM. Here we have taken the example of fetching API data, and this is the major use of use effect when you will also use it mostly in your projects, that is for fetching purpose. Let's see how it works. So see, what I have done is use effect, and then inside here I am writing the fetching logic, and here if you see I have added a empty block. Okay, empty brackets. Basically this is called as empty dependency array. Okay, this is called as dependency array. Okay, and in that dependency array you can enter a dependency basically. Now what is the concept in use effect is, if you have entered a variable, okay, here for example count only. Okay, so what is the concept is that use effect will be executed every time whenever there is a change in the count value, and if you have kept this as empty, which means that use effect will be implemented only once when the component mounts. Okay, for only once, for the first time when your components mount, only then use effect will be executed, and then after that it won't be executed anytime. But if you put a value in the dependency array, then for the first time also it will execute, and then whenever there is a change in the dependency value, then also it will re-render basically. And here is the simple logic of fetching the API data. Simply we are just putting the endpoint and inside the fetch, and then we are using dot then, and then this will have the result. And what we are doing is we are just simply doing response.json. Basically it will convert to a readable format, that is JSON format, and then we are simply console logging the data that we are receiving. Okay, but the main concept was to understand how use effect work and in what cases it is worked, and what is the concept of dependency array. And I have also mentioned here that the empty dependency array ensures that this runs only once when the component is mounted and will not run later on. Okay, let's move on to the next question. What is useRef hook? Okay, and how is it different from useState hook? Let's see the answer for this question. useRef hook is used to reference DOM elements without causing re-renders. Unlike useState, changes to a useRef value do not trigger re-renders. Okay, so basically useRef is basically a little bit different from useState. It is used to reference directly DOM elements without causing re-renders. Okay, let's see the example here. What the example is showcasing is autofocus and input field on mount. Okay, when the component is mounted, you have to autofocus an input. Let's see. Here in this way we basically create a useRef. Okay, so we have created const input ref and then useRef null. Okay, initialize the useRef value with null and then assigned it to input ref. And then in use effect, what we are doing is whenever our component is mounted, we are doing input ref dot current dot focus, which means that our input value will be focused. Okay, whenever the component is mounted for the first time. Okay, this is the simple implementation of useRef. Now let's see some differences between useRef and useState. First thing is causes re-renders. So we know that useState causes re-renders, but useRef does not causes any re-renders. Second difference is used for UI updates. So state is used for UI updates, but useRef is not used for that purpose. It is used for directly manipulating the DOM elements. Third difference is can store DOM elements. So useState cannot store DOM elements. Okay, but useRef can directly manage DOM elements and can store that. Okay, I hope you have now understood what is the difference between useState and useRef and what is useRef in general. Now guys, we have seen a lot of questions. Now I have very few final rapid fire interview round questions. Simply we will see one question and one more quick answer for those, because these are most important questions. So at least you should have basic knowledge of how to answer this question. First question is, what will happen if you call set state in a use effect without a dependency array? So see, the answer is it will cause an infinite re-render loop. Okay, let's see the next question. What does the empty dependency array in use effect mean? So the answer is it ensures that the effect runs only once, that is on mount. Third question is, can we modify props inside a component? So the answer is no, props are only read only. So props cannot be modified inside a child component. So whenever this question is asked, you should not consider that this question is asked about parent component, because parent component is very obvious. There you are defining your props, so obviously there you can change those values, because initializing, that is not called changing the values, that is called initializing the values. When you say can we modify or change, we mean that can we modify in our child component or not. Okay, so no, we cannot modify props because they are only read only. Next question is, what is the main advantage of useRef over useState? So the answer is it doesn't trigger re-render when its value changes. Okay, and this can also be considered as a disadvantage in some cases, but yeah, whenever this kind of question is asked to as a comparison between two and the advantage of useRef over useState, you can say this one, that useRef does not trigger re-render whenever its value is getting changed. So this was some final rapid fire questions. Now guys, I have one last question for you. This is a DIY question. DIY as in you have to attempt this question by yourself and write down its answer in the comment section. Okay, the question is, which of the following statements about the use effect hook is true? And the options are, first option is use effect always runs on every render by default. Option B is the dependency array ensures that the effect runs after every re-render. Option C is use effect cannot be used to fetch data from an API, and option D is use effect runs synchronously before the DOM updates. Make sure to drop your answer in the comment box and please share your review if you have found this video helpful or not. So guys, that's all for today's video. I hope you found it helpful, and if you do, please give it a like. If you have any more doubts, please drop them in the comment section. You can also join me on Telegram and follow me on Instagram as well. You can ask your queries over Instagram DM too. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss on any of the important updates or notification whenever I upload a new video. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching the video.